Hi, I'm Jason, and for some reason I make music as Sycamore Willow. Today I'm here to talk about getting ready for performances. If you're not interested in hearing me talk about that, I hope you stick around anyway and just skip forward to the performance after this. And please leave me some feedback in the comments or send me a direct message. All kinds of feedback are welcome, just as long as it's in the spirit of being helpful, of course. Okay, so here's what's happening. I've got a bunch of open mics coming up. In the Bay Area, we're lucky enough to have tons of open mics, and some of them are specific only for electronic musicians. Along those lines, shout out to the good folk at Resonant Frequencies and Noisebridge. Thank you for putting these events on. I know I appreciate it, and I'm pretty sure every electronic musician that shows up appreciates it too. If you're a fan of electronic music and want to see some really unknown, interesting, and downright weird stuff, come to these things too. We need people to come listen and appreciate. So, if you've never performed outside of your bedroom, I hope you find this video useful. I'm going to think a little bit about how I get over my nervousness to start to pull together a performance. I'm super nervous about doing electronic music live. Like, I performed for many, many years in bands and even a little bit solo, but doing electronic music live is still pretty new to me. So, I think I've been putting it off for a little too long because it makes me nervous. So, just starting to attack the problem, what I did is I started with some basic assumptions about what it would take to be able to perform. So one thing I know is I wanted to show up with a really minimal gear setup so I can get to the performance easily and reduce complexity in general. Secondly, when I'm jamming at home, there are a few things that I just feel really comfortable doing, and I should for sure take advantage of those things to help boost my confidence for a live performance. The things that I know I can lean on while I'm working out my stuff for live shows are, 1, I like unsynced loops. I like the surprises that happen when loops don't always overlap in predictable ways. I also love improvising over unsynced loops. And finally, for the loops, I love using sounds that I've designed. So with these things in mind, I made a plan. First, I spent time in my sound editor, which is Reaper, if you're curious, just going through bunches of sounds I had, finding ones that I thought would work together, and then editing them down into short loops that would fit on the Digitakt. The Digitakt, I think, takes 32 or 33 second loops. Hey, while I'm here, though, let me talk a little bit about resampling, which is essentially what I'm doing here. Here, I've learned a few things about samples, and I want to share them. I hope you find them useful. So one thing is that if you're like me and you love spending hours just getting lost in creating melodies and sounds, here's what you should do. Have your recording device ready and capture anything that sounds interesting and catalog them. It's a really fun thing to do. Like when you're like, oh boy, I wanted to go do music now. Just go back and listen to old sounds. It's really inspiring. I often think of it as it's like I'm collaborating with somebody else, because more often than not, I forget not only like how I made these sounds, but I forgot that I even made them at all, which leads me to my next thought. If you're collaborating with someone new, it's a great way to get started. Just share short sounds that you've designed, short melodies, short weird sounds, whatever it is you're into. It's super inspiring for me to get clips from other people that are sounds that I wouldn't normally create, and then like the craft of assembling them into something of a composition, either in my sampler or in my DAW. It's lovely. It's almost comforting. It's a way to just lose myself in sound yet again. So some more advice for you. If you make music but you don't really do sound design, I suggest you go find some sounds somebody else designed. There's loads of compelling sample packs out there, and I keep threatening to release mine, which I really, really need to do soon. I think you might find it inspiring to start manipulating someone else's audio and turning that into a composition, or making it part of a larger composition. I'm almost done here. One more point. If you're an electronic musician, and you don't do sound design sessions, I really suggest you try it. Just sit down and noodle with effects and melodies and things like that, and capture literally anything that sounds vaguely interesting to you. Chop it up, catalog it, and let it sit for a while. It's almost as if the samples ferment and take on new flavors. It's really quite something. I know on the one hand, when you're composing, it's super important to like capture the heat of the moment, but there's something about this like making smaller bits that you're going to use for composition later that has a bit of magic for me. Okay, enough of that. Let's get back on track here. I'm here to talk about preparing for performances. So let's talk about that now. After I edited a bunch of my samples, the goal was to use them in the Digitakt. I often use my Digitakt to kind of like trigger loops that just cycle, and I also use it as a sequencer. The unsynced loops, though, are a really effective and fun way to create randomness and surprises, especially if you're an experimental musician. So anyway, got the loops into the Digitakt, and I had to experiment for a while to get them all working together nicely. This involved filtering, pitch changes, and other small things. So rather than me talking about it, let's just kind of walk through all the samples really quickly, and I'll point out what I've done with them. Okay, so what you'll see here is in pattern 3 are all the original unaffected samples, and in pattern 2 are the things, the effects I added and the changes I made to get ready for performing. So let's start. Even though I don't really use them left or right in the performance, I'll just go left to right here. So here's the first sample. Cool, so that's, I love swirling, backwards sounding stuff. I can't get enough of it. I hope you feel the same. That's that sample. Here's what it sounded like after I treated it a little bit. Okay, so nothing real drastic. I cut some of the mid-range out. It was a pretty mid-range heavy sample, which would be heavy. It would be nice in some context, but in this case, I knew I was going to fill in the mid-range with some melody over here, and then nothing fancy, just a little bit of delay to give it space, which might be a crutch. But let's not think about that too much right now. Here's the next sample. All right, that sounds like a really close relative of the last sample. I'm pretty sure it is. Here's what I chose to do with it. Cool, so that, again, some filtering, used a high pass, but the pitch down thing was I put an LFO on this to change the sample tuning just as a one-off on the saw wave. We'll see how that works in the performance. You let me know. Okay, here's the third sample. And here's how I treated it. Cool. Similar treatment there, right? Took a little bit of the mid-range out, but up a little higher, and added some delay for width, and I think added a little bit of overdrive on there too. Yep, looks like it. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next sample. Oh, I don't remember how I got that sound. It sounds like maybe like handling noise on a tape recorder or something like that, but yeah, let's see how I affected that. Okay, just loads of delay and reverb and high pass filter. Cool. Next one. All right, and let's see how I treated that. Okay, cool. Looks like I just pitched it down a little bit. A little filtering again, a lot of removing mid-range here to make room for the melodies, and looks like a lot of overdrive. Let's go on to sample 6. Cool. I really like that sound. Okay, so this is the first one where I actually like do some amplitude envelope. so that it's just a short burst. Loads of delay and reverb. Almost doing like a high pass on this, but doing more of a notch, a wide notch down low. It's not really much of a notch, it's so wide, but anyway, a subtractive EQ. Cool, let's listen to sample 7. I just love that sample. It just has this sort of like excited, almost jittery, like it's springtime, I'm in love kind of feel to it. I love that sample. All right, let's hear how I added effects to it. Okay, so I added another envelope onto that, and the delay and reverb, and again a little subtractive EQ in the mid-range to give it space for these other things. Let's listen to the last sample. Okay, so you can hear 6, 7, and 8 are pretty closely related. They may, the differences are minor. So let's listen to how I affected it. So you can hear how these three work together. This one might have a little too much low end in it. I might have to fix that. But anyway, they are different pitches. Yeah, okay, we'll see how those work together when you listen to the performance. Anyway, those are the sounds. Let me talk about the rest of the stuff I got ready for the show. So I knew I wanted to improvise melodies on top of these things, so I got my favorite piano sound on the OP-1, and I run it through this effects chain that's really familiar and comforting to me. I like the warped vinyl. First is a blooper, then the warped vinyl. I love the warped vinyl basically as a chorus on this piano. And then before the warp vinyl, I love using the looper in a longish loop, like up to 30 seconds. I mean, and it's continually recording and then slowly fading with each pass of the loop. So you just got repeats up high. This effect, if you just play slow melodies and then maybe adjust the pitch or play the notes backwards, the effect is to like create unintended melodic content that you can just build on. Just by slowly adding notes, and it helps build the intensity of the performance in that way alone. In order to do that, you just have to settle on a scale that works nicely. I've had scales of like 5 notes only, and in this case I'm using 7 notes. So all the notes you play can start to even mush together at times into something that almost sounds like a pad, especially when you run it backwards, because you get that slow attack of notes just kind of shelving over each other. It's really lovely. It's just really a blast to play around with turning this modifier in stepped pitch mode. You can move them backwards, and if it's stepped, you can be almost guaranteed that any step you put it on is going to work, right? You just decide how much you want to pitch it up or down. And then flipping in the additive thing is cool too, because then you permanently affect the loop with the pitch change. You just can start creating more and more craziness and unpredictableness, which can add a lot of energy to any performance. Okay, so all that goes into the Digitakt, which I can use as a mixer because it'll allow you to take these 2 inputs into the mixer section. This makes for a really portable setup. I can fit all this in a backpack and show up to the show on my bicycle or a bus or a train. If it was close enough, I could even walk, which is the case for one of them. Okay, so that's all the pieces I put together. What follows is one of the rehearsals I did here at home. So please listen to it. Try to make it all the way through if you can, and leave me feedback. Again, leave me feedback in the comments, or direct message me is great to you. Anyway, after this, I'll wrap up the video with my own thoughts and reflections. Hope you like those too. Thanks. Okay, so I mostly felt good about the performance. I think I could craft some of the filters better, and I'm going to tweak them after this and keep getting it better over a few performances. Also, I think I'm relying a bit too much on stereo effects like the delay and panning to help create separation between the sounds. I think what I'll do is I'll try running this one time in mono and work on better separating sounds that way. I think it'll really help make sure that the mix is very clear. And lastly, I'm not real happy with the transition to the more upbeat where I was using these samples on this end. I'm not real happy with that transition to there. I need to find a better way to get there. I'm not sure what it is. So if you've got any ideas for me, let me know. Okay. So thank you. If you're in the Bay Area, come on out to an open mic and support me, support all your local musicians. We really need your help right now. And the venues definitely need your help. And actually that's probably true wherever you are. But regardless, I hope to see you soon in person or at least here on the internet. All right. Thanks. Bye.